You burst out of your egg and immediately start drowning. Not because there's no water. There's plenty of water. You're literally surrounded by water. You're drowning because your gills don't work properly yet, and your fins are pointing in the wrong direction, and your swim bladder is so underdeveloped that you sink like a rock the moment you stop moving. You flap desperately, trying to figure out which way is up, and somehow manage to reach the surface just in time to gasp for air that you don't actually need because you're a fish. Welcome to existence. You're a Magikarp now. The universe's longest-running joke, and the punchline is your entire life. Around you, thousands of other Magikarp eggs are hatching. Your mother released them into the river 3 days ago and immediately forgot they existed because Magikarp don't do parenting. They don't do protection. They don't do anything except exist and suffer, and occasionally flop onto dry land for no reason. You watch your siblings emerge from their eggs, each one just as pathetic and confused as you, and you realize that you're all in this together. Which would be comforting if being together didn't just mean being eaten together. A Pidgeotto swoops down from the sky and grabs 6 of your siblings in one pass. Its talons close around their bodies like they're made of wet tissue paper, which they basically are, and carries them away screaming. You dive deeper, trying to escape, but diving requires coordination, and you have approximately 0 of that. You end up swimming in a circle, bumping into rocks, and eventually getting stuck in a current that pushes you directly into the path of a basculin. The basculin looks at you. You look at the basculin. There's a moment of eye contact where you both understand exactly what's about to happen. The basculin opens its mouth, you close your eyes, and then, miraculously, impossibly, the basculin swims away. Not because you scared it, not because you fought back, but because you're so small and so pathetic that eating you would actually burn more calories than you contain. You're not worth the effort. You're nutritionally irrelevant. The basculin looked at you and did the math and decided that chewing through your tiny body would be a net energy loss. This is your first victory. You survived because you weren't worth killing. Remember this feeling. You're going to experience it approximately 800 more times. Skip forward 1 week. You've learned how to swim in a straight line, which puts you in the top 10% of Magikarp intellectual achievement. You've also learned that you have exactly one move. It's called Splash. And it does nothing. Not almost nothing. Not a little bit of something. Literally nothing. You throw your body into the air, flop around like you're having a seizure, crash back into the water, and achieve absolutely 0 effect on anything around you. The first time you used Splash, you thought maybe it was a setup move, like maybe it would power up your next attack or confuse your enemy. But no, there is no next attack. There is no strategy. You just flop around uselessly and then wait to die. You've tried using Splash on a Goldeen that was chasing you. The Goldeen stopped chasing you, but only because it was laughing too hard to swim straight. You've tried using Splash on a rock that was in your way. The rock remained in your way. You've tried using Splash on the surface of the water just to see what would happen. What happened was nothing. You got tired and sank to the bottom and had to rest for 20 minutes. Every other Pokémon has attacks that matter. Pikachu has electricity. Charmander has fire. Squirtle has water guns and shell-based defensive moves. You have the ability to flop around and hope that your enemy dies of secondhand embarrassment. This is your toolkit. This is your build, and there's no respec option. Skip forward 1 month. You're still alive, which is statistically improbable. Of the 1,000 siblings you hatched with, approximately 40 remain. The rest were eaten by birds, bigger fish, that one Gyarados that passed through last week and swallowed 200 Magikarp just because it could, and various other predators who viewed your species as a free buffet. You've survived by developing a skill that no one ever talks about, but every Magikarp knows intimately. The skill of running away. You're actually getting good at it. You've learned to read the water currents and use them to boost your escape speed. You've learned to hide in underwater crevices that bigger Pokémon can't fit into. You've learned to swim in erratic zigzag patterns that make you harder to track. You're basically a professional coward, and you're not ashamed of it, because shame requires self-esteem, and that's a luxury item for Magikarp. But there's a problem. A big, fundamental, existence-defining problem. You're not getting any stronger. Other Pokémon fight battles and gain experience and level up and learn new moves. You can't fight battles because you have no attacks that do damage. You can't gain experience because experience requires actually affecting the world in some way. And you definitely can't learn new moves because the move tutor took one look at you and asked if you were someone's bait. The only way to get stronger is to survive. Just keep existing day after day until your body accumulates enough experience from raw survival to trigger evolution. The estimated time for this process, based on how pathetic you currently are, is approximately 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years of running away from everything, eating whatever scraps you can find, and flopping uselessly whenever danger approaches. That's your training montage, not dramatic battles against rival Pokémon. Not intense sessions with a dedicated trainer. Just years of being afraid and running and hoping that today isn't the day something finally catches you. Skip forward 6 months. You've discovered something that might change your life. There are these things called trainers. Humans who catch Pokémon and train them to fight and somehow turn even the weakest creatures into powerful warriors. You've seen them walking along the riverbank, throwing Pokeballs at anything that moves. Most of them ignore Magikarp completely. But some of them, the weird ones, the collectors, the people who see potential where none exists, they actually want to catch you. At first you avoid them. Being caught means losing your freedom, being trapped in a tiny ball, being forced to fight battles you can't win. But then you watch a trainer's Pokémon in action. A Butterfree that can put enemies to sleep with powder. A Rattata that can bite through steel. A Pidgey that can create tornadoes with its wings. These are creatures who started small and weak and became something powerful. These are creatures who had trainers to help them grow. Maybe that's what you need. Maybe the secret to breaking out of this pathetic existence isn't doing it alone. Maybe you need someone to believe in you, to invest in you, to see past the flopping and the uselessness and recognize that somewhere deep inside your orange body, there's potential waiting to be unlocked. You swim toward the surface, positioning yourself where a trainer can see you. A young kid with a fishing rod notices you immediately. His eyes light up. He throws his Pokeball. And for one beautiful moment, you feel hope. The Pokeball bounces off your head and falls into the water. The kid retrieves it, looks at you, and says the words that will haunt you forever. Nah, I'm looking for something good. He walks away. You float there, rejected, as the current slowly pushes you downstream. This happens 11 more times over the next 2 months. Trainers see you, consider catching you, and decide against it. Some of them laugh. Some of them take pictures to show their friends how pathetic you look. One of them actually catches you, realizes what he caught, and releases you immediately while muttering about wasting a Pokeball. The Pokeball. That's what gets you. Pokeballs cost money. You are worth less than the ball required to catch you. Your value is negative. You actively make trainers poorer by existing in catchable proximity. Skip forward 1 year. You're not small anymore. A year of eating and surviving has made you longer, heavier, more substantial. You're still pathetic, but you're bigger pathetic. Your fins are stronger. Your scales are thicker. You can jump higher when you splash, achieving absolutely nothing at a greater altitude than ever before. But something else has changed too. You've started feeling a pressure inside your body. A heat that builds sometimes when you're running away from predators. A tingling in your scales that intensifies after particularly close calls. You don't know what it means, but it feels important. It feels like potential. The other Magikarp don't have this feeling. You can tell because you've asked them in the limited way that Magikarp communicate, which is mostly just staring at each other with vacant eyes. They just accept their existence as pathetic prey animals. They've given up on being anything more. But you haven't. You can't. Something inside you refuses to believe that this is all there is. You start taking risks. Instead of running away from every threat, you start running away from most threats, but occasionally staying to watch. You observe how other Pokémon fight. You study their techniques, their strategies, their timing. You can't use any of this information because you still only know Splash, but you're learning anyway. You're preparing for something, even though you don't know what. A Seeking attacks you near the river bend. Instead of immediately fleeing, you face it and splash directly at its face. The splash does nothing, obviously, but for a split second, the Seeking flinches, surprised that you're fighting back at all. That moment of surprise gives you enough time to escape into a narrow cave where the seeking can't follow. It's not a victory. It's barely even a survival. But it feels like progress. Skip forward another year. You're 2 years old now. Ancient by Magikarp standards. Most of your generation is dead, eaten, or caught and released by trainers who wanted something better. You're one of maybe 5 original siblings still swimming in this river. The pressure inside you has gotten stronger. The heat builds faster and lasts longer. Sometimes your scales glow faintly in the dark, which scares away smaller fish and attracts the attention of researchers who want to study you. One of those researchers catches you, not to train you, to examine you. He puts you in a tank and runs tests and takes measurements and writes notes in a book that you can't read. He seems excited about something. He keeps saying words like threshold and energy accumulation and evolutionary potential. After a week of tests, he releases you back into the river with a small tracking device attached to your fin. He tells you, as if you can understand human language, which you definitely can't, that you're close. Close to what? You don't know. But the way he says it makes you feel like all the running and surviving and pointless splashing might actually be leading somewhere. Skip forward 6 months. You're in a battle. Your first real battle. A trainer finally caught you, a determined little girl who said she didn't care what anyone thought. She was going to raise the strongest Magikarp in the world and prove everyone wrong. Her name is Amy, and she believes in you in a way that no one has ever believed in anything. The problem is that believing in a Magikarp doesn't make the Magikarp any less useless. Amy sends you out against a Geodude, a rock-type Pokémon that's basically just a boulder with arms. You splash at it. The Geodude doesn't move. You splash again. The Geodude yawns. You splash a third time, putting everything you have into it. Every ounce of energy you've accumulated over 2.5 years of survival. The Geodude falls asleep. Not because your splash did anything, because it got bored waiting for you to do something and decided to take a nap mid-battle. Amy recalls you and sends out her Pidgey instead. The Pidgey wins the battle in 30 seconds. You watch from inside your Pokeball, feeling the familiar shame of being useless, and wonder why Amy even keeps you around. But she does keep you around. Battle after battle, she sends you out first, lets you splash once or twice, and then switches to a Pokemon that can actually fight. You gain tiny amounts of experience from these brief appearances. Not much, but some. And that sum starts adding up. The pressure inside you is unbearable now. It feels like your body is trying to contain a thunderstorm. Your scales glow constantly. Your eyes burn with an intensity that scares other Pokémon. Something is coming. Something is changing. You just need a little more. One more battle. One more survival. One more pathetic, useless splash. Skip forward to the moment everything changes. You're in a battle against a Gyarados. Not just any Gyarados. A wild one, massive and angry, that attacked Amy while she was fishing near a lake. Her other Pokémon are knocked out. You're the only one left. She sends you out knowing that it's hopeless, that a Magikarp against a Gyarados is like a paper airplane against a hurricane. But she has no other choice. You face the Gyarados. It's 100 times your size. Its teeth are longer than your entire body. Its eyes glow with the rage that all Gyarados carry, the fury that comes from remembering what it was like to be weak and pathetic and useless. Because that's the thing about Gyarados. Every single one of them used to be a Magikarp. Every single one of them knows exactly what you're going through. The Gyarados roars. You splash. It's the most pathetic thing imaginable, a tiny orange fish flopping around in front of a sea dragon that could swallow cities. The Gyarados opens its mouth to end this joke of a battle. And then the light starts. It begins in your core and expands outward, brighter than anything you've ever experienced. Your body stretches. Your fins become something else. Your teeth grow. Your scales harden. The pressure that's been building for 3 years finally releases, and it releases violently, transforming you from the weakest Pokémon in existence to something that makes trainers run screaming. The evolution takes 10 seconds. When it's over, you're not a Magikarp anymore. You're a Gyarados. 20 feet of blue rage coiled in the water like a living, natural disaster. You have fangs that can bite through steel. You have a hyper beam that can level buildings. You have access to moves like Hydro Pump and Dragon Rage and Crunch and everything else that Magikarp never got to use. The wild Gyarados looks at you. You look at it. For a moment, there's recognition. Two former Magikarp facing each other, both knowing exactly how much suffering it took to get here. Then you attack, because that's what Gyarados do. They attack, they rage, they destroy. 3 years of humiliation and fear and running away all compressed into a single devastating hyper beam that sends the wild Gyarados flying backward. The battle isn't close. How could it be? You've been preparing for this moment your entire life. Every time you ran away, you were saving energy. Every time you splashed uselessly, you were building potential. Every time a predator decided you weren't worth eating, you were getting one step closer to becoming the thing that eats everything. The wild Gyarados retreats. You roar in triumph, a sound that shakes the trees and sends birds scattering for miles. Amy stares at you with tears in her eyes, the little girl who believed in a fish that couldn't fight, finally vindicated. But something's wrong. Something feels off. The rage that powered your evolution isn't going away. It's growing. You look at the forest and want to destroy it. You look at the lake and want to flood it. You look at Amy and feel an urge to attack, even though she's your trainer, even though she saved you, even though she's the only human who ever believed you were worth anything. This is the price of evolution. This is what they don't tell you when you're a Magikarp dreaming of becoming something stronger. Gyarados aren't just powerful, they're unstable. The rage that transforms them never fully goes away. It sits in their blood, making them aggressive, making them violent, making them dangerous to everything around them, including the people they care about. You fight it. You push the rage down, focusing on Amy's face, on her voice calling your name, on the memory of all those battles where she sent you out knowing you couldn't win, but believing in you anyway. The rage subsides, barely. You're still furious, still dangerous, but you're in control. For now. Amy approaches carefully, reaching out to touch your new scales. You lower your head, letting her pat you gently, feeling the heat of rage mixing with something softer, something that might be gratitude or love or just exhaustion after 3 years of being the worst Pokémon alive. Skip forward 1 year. You're a champion's Pokémon now. Amy used you to crush every gym, every rival, every Elite Four member who thought a Gyarados was too predictable to fear. You've learned moves that would make your Magikarp self faint from shock. You've fought legendary Pokémon and won. You've become everything that trainers look for and competitors dread. But the rage never leaves. Every battle feeds it. Every victory makes it harder to stay calm. Sometimes you wake up thrashing, destroying whatever's around you, before you're even fully conscious. Amy has learned to keep her distance when you sleep. She's learned to read the signs of an incoming rampage and recall you before you hurt someone. This is your life now. Ultimate power paired with ultimate instability. You went from being too weak to matter, to being too dangerous to control. The universe looked at your Magikarp existence and said, "Here's your monkey's paw wish. Enjoy having the strength you always wanted, along with the curse of never being at peace again." Sometimes, late at night, when the rage subsides enough to let you think clearly, you remember what it was like to be small and pathetic and scared. You remember the Basculin that decided you weren't worth eating. You remember the trainers who rejected you. You remember the years of splashing uselessly while everything stronger than you looked down with contempt. You don't miss it. How could you? That life was suffering in its purest form. But at least when you were a Magikarp, the suffering was passive. Things happened to you. Now the suffering is active. You do things to others. You destroy and rage and intimidate because that's what your evolved body demands. Maybe this is the real joke. The universe gives you exactly what you wanted, power and strength and respect, and makes you pay for it with your sanity. You escape being prey by becoming the ultimate predator, and now you can't stop predating even when you want to. Amy releases you sometimes to swim free in large lakes. You appreciate the gesture. The space helps with the rage. The solitude lets you think without the constant pressure of civilization triggering your destructive instincts. During one of these swims, you see a Magikarp. Small, orange, pathetic, swimming in circles near the shore because it can't figure out how currents work. A Pidgeotto circles overhead, deciding whether to attack. You could save it. One roar from you, and the Pidgeotto would flee. One gesture of protection, and that little Magikarp might survive another day. Might eventually evolve. Might become something powerful like you. But you don't save it. You just watch. Because you know something that little Magikarp doesn't know yet. You know that survival isn't the hard part. Evolution isn't the victory. The hard part is what comes after, when you finally get what you wanted and realize it wasn't what you needed. The Pidgeotto dives. The Magikarp splashes uselessly. The circle continues, and you swim away, carrying 3 years of weakness and 1 year of rage, wondering if any of it was worth it. It was. Of course it was. Because the alternative was dying as a joke. But still, sometimes you miss the simplicity of being pathetic. At least pathetic didn't hurt anyone. You dive deeper into the lake, letting the pressure of the water calm your thoughts. Above you, the sun creates patterns on the surface that look almost peaceful. Somewhere up there, Amy is waiting for you to come back. Somewhere up there, the world continues, full of Magikarp dreaming of evolution, and Gyarados regretting it. You close your eyes and let the rage wash through you one more time. Then you push it down, again, like you do every hour of every day, and swim toward the surface. There's a gym battle tomorrow. More destruction, more power, more of everything you thought you wanted. You can't wait. You can't stop.